recording. There we go. And everybody can see my screen. Beautiful. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the virtual studios of Antion Associates. I'm Tom Antion. I'll be your host for this event. I'm broadcasting, as always, from the Great Internet Marketing Retreat Center in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where for now going on 19 years, people have come in from all over the world to study internet marketing in the lap of luxury. Now, in this webinar, I'm going to be going over how to create, distribute, market, and monetize a podcast. All right, now make sure you write this down. You should be able to take notes here. Also, on that opening screen, if you can think of anybody else that needs this, send them to screwthecommute.com/901, and they can register and get in here within a minute or so. Now, write this down. TomAntionWebinars.com is where you will typically find the replays of past webinars. Now, we are recording, and I will be sending out the replay. Usually, I can get it out the next afternoon, and you can watch it again, pass it on to people that need it. All right, there we go. All right, let's get into the main event here. And again, with more people stopping in, I want to make sure you find your dashboard on the side. Some of you will have it on the side with a little orange box and a white arrow to open and close it. Find your question box there. And John says, good evening from New Hampshire. All right, good evening to you. And some of you, if you're watching the replay, will have a box underneath the slides, and in that case, you must keep your email open. That's how I will get forwarded your question, and I will answer it through there, and it'll come back to your email. All right, so make sure you got that. And I'm by myself, so I will check questions occasionally to see what's going on. All right, here we go. All right, now most of you know the plan that have been on my stuff before. I've got an enormous reputation for giving great value, and I will never let you down on that. In other words, if you never buy anything from me, my goal was that you say, hey, boy, that Tom Antion really taught me some great stuff. That's been my reputation for many, many years, and I never let you down. However, you can be darn sure I'm going to offer you something later to buy. But here's the deal. It's only after I totally deliver on my promise to show you how to create, distribute, a quality podcast fast. So do you think that's a fair deal? If you think that's a fair deal, also we'll check, make sure everybody's got their question box open. Put that in your question thing. That's fair, Tom, or something like that. You find your question box at, there we go. That's fair, more than fair. Hey, Greg, nice to see you. Clive, fair and square. George says yes. They're blasting in here. More than fair. Laura, beautiful. Okay, there's more than I can, they're going too fast for me. Okay, so now, if you bought the pre-publication sale of the course that I'm selling, then there's some extra things that you just might want to upgrade. So just hang in there for that. Okay, this is the course, Podcasting 901, the fast track to a quality show. All right. Now, why podcasting? Well, I put these pictures up here to give you an idea of the different people that you're reaching now with this podcasting. We have a young girl here on the left. We've got a young man on the right. We've got a married lady, a middle-aged lady on the right there. We've got this one is a representative of foreign countries. I think Screw the Commute, my podcast, is in about 60 countries now. And older generations also are listening. So you can really widen the reach of the things that you do. And also, the whole thing is we're in business. The people that follow me and that come to my stuff are in business. They're in business to sell stuff, products and services, either affiliate stuff or their own stuff. So that's the primary focus of what I'm talking about tonight. So you can make affiliate commissions. You can establish or enhance your credibility, which means that your fees raise for other things that you do. See, so that's another use of this. And you reach new markets. And you reach people you may have trouble reaching. Now, this is an important one right here because you can get to people if you're going to interview them that would never take your call for other, if you're just trying to sell them something. High level people and companies and stuff are, you get in touch with their underlings, say, hey, you got a publicity. This to them, it's a publicity hit. And so you can get to people that you never could get to in any other fashion. That's a really important one right there. And it's easier to create. I mean, you've seen me, a lot of you have seen me over many years talking about video, and I'm crazy about video. But there's more than one thing that you can do. This is way easier to create than video, and you can have all the bad hair days you want, okay? Now, you can do a video podcast or video your podcast and then use it for other things if you want to, but you don't have to. So it's way easier to create. Now, this is an important term, increased consumption. See, when you put out products and services, if people don't actually use them or what we call consume them, well, the chances of them buying anything else from you are slim, and it's likely that some of them will ask for a refund. So podcasting is very easy to consume, and it's the only medium where people can either learn something or be entertained while they're doing something else. So it's very easy to consume, and that's what you want. And it's an on-demand technology. See, I used to do tons of radio interviews. And yes, if somebody wants one now, I'll do it for sure. But this on-demand, they were short-lived. If somebody wasn't listening in that 5 minutes or 20 minutes on talk radio that I was on, well, it's just gone into the ether, see? But these things are on demand and have a long life. I mean, people are still going and listening, starting at episode 1 of mine, which was hundreds of episodes ago, and it's coming right up through the ranks. See? So they can do it at their leisure. That's why Netflix and Hulu and all these places went big, because people can watch stuff when they want to. So that's what this is. And it can be highly engaging. You can have contests. You can have, I'm going to show you some other ways to get really cool tricks. And if you stay all the way to the end, I'm going to have 3 super duper things that hardly anybody knows about in the podcast world unless they're really high level. I'm going to give them to you for those that stick into the end. Okay. You can build traffic to your website, which I do it all the time when you hear me, when we talk about the marketing stuff inside your podcast to get people to go to your website. And you're building a massive library of content. You're just running your mouth for your podcasts, and or if you have a guest, they're running their mouth, but it's all being recorded, which means it's content you're building like crazy. And certainly Jeff Herring appreciates that, the content guide. It's just a fast way to do it. And then you can repurpose that content into ebooks, audio products, video products, white papers, webinars. I actually have an ebook called Repurposing, How to Sell Your Knowledge in 19 Different Ways. It outlines 19 ways you can repurpose this stuff. And you can get speaking engagements and other opportunities. See, a lot of the people starting podcasts are short-sighted, and maybe they're not real savvy in business. And so they want to get a sponsor. Ooh, I get a sponsor. Well, sponsors in the podcast world, this is not hard and fast numbers, but it's very close. Pay between $8 and $12 per 1,000 downloads of an episode. It's hard to get 1,000 downloads. Okay. And if you do, you only get maybe at the most $12. I mean, if you were a super big show with massive following of high-end people, maybe you could get $20 per 1,000. All right. But the thing is it takes you a long time to get 1,000 downloads, unless you get lucky. But if you're your own, when I get into the monetization, we're going to talk about selling your own stuff, basically. With way less downloads, you can make way more money. Especially if you get one speaking engagement, for most of you out there, could be thousands of dollars. So that's another thing. Why podcasting? All right. So why now? Why am I on this now? Because if those of you who've known me a long time, I poo-pooed podcasts for a long time because nobody was making any money. It was a big ego trip and just a big hassle for everybody. I actually now, as I look back, wish I'd have started, a couple years earlier, but so be it. But now listenership is skyrocketing. It's exceeded satellite or XM radio, which is the paid thing you have in your car. Podcasting has exceeded that. And new cars now are being set up so that you can just say, hey, play Screw the Commute podcast to the dashboard, and it'll start playing my podcast. And that's going to be millions and millions of new listeners because it's being made so easy. In-home smart devices like Amazon's Echo and the Google Assistant. There's over 100 million by the latest figures out of Amazon of their Echo, and 52 million Google devices, and it's going crazy. Sometimes multiple in the same house. And again, you can walk up to it, and for some reason on my Alexa device, my Echo, you have to say play the Screw the Commute podcast for it to play. If you say play Screw the Commute, it plays something else. I don't know what it is. But anyway, it's still enormous numbers of people. So listenership, and that's putting you for free in front of potentially millions and millions and millions of people. And there's a minimal cost for equipment and hosting for these things. So you'll see that as we go. All right, so let's have a poll. I want to see where we're at here now. So I'm going to pull up a poll here. And those of you on the live webinar can just click on this. I think you can just click on the screen. Those of you watching the replay, you just put your answer in the box underneath the slide. So let me pull a poll out here for you. Let's see. Poll must be closed to enable screen sharing. What's that? What? So something goofy's happened that's new here. I haven't used this for a while. Oh, it's working? Okay, from my end, I don't see it. I'm like, what? Okay, so go ahead and it's do you know all the basics of creating a quality podcast? Yes, no, or if the podcast fairy held your microphone. I hope it shows me the results. Oh, okay, they're coming in. All right, so let me give it 15 more seconds. Good. All right, Mike was able to click and submit. Yeah, on my end, it usually shows that on the screen, but now all it's showing is let's have a poll. Let's see. 80% of the people have voted. Okay, good. And give it 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's close that poll. and share those results. Now, I hope you see it because I don't, but I can see the numbers on the side, but the screen hasn't changed. So it looks like 24% already know how to do this. All right, well, hopefully you'll get some tips, but it looks like 76% of people either don't know or if the podcast fairy, I guess that's me today, held your microphone. Okay. So I was surprised at that 24% if you already know how to do this. Maybe that's the 24% of people that already bought the course. Okay, so let's get going here. All right. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. Planning, basic equipment and software, your recording area, recording your setup, hosting your podcast, booking guests, marketing it, and making money on it. All right, that's what we're going to blow through here today. But I'll just do an abbreviated why you should listen to me. A lot of people already know me on here, so I had my own business since before graduating college around 1977. Started selling online in 1994. Didn't make a nickel till 1996 when I got good training from Corey Rudel, a guy who was like the 31-year-old grandfather of internet marketing. 4 years later, I was a multimillionaire and enjoy that today and build on it. So, been around quite a bit. I started podcasting only in June of 2018, but I do 3 episodes a week, and I do occasionally a youth episode, somebody 20-year-old or younger that's doing some entrepreneurial stuff. So that's hundreds and hundreds. I don't want to name the number right now because this webinar will last for a while. It's hundreds of episodes and brought in an enormous amount of money without sponsors. No outside entity gave me money to be on the show. And if you know me, you know I try not to waste my time on things that don't make money. All right, so this can make you a lot of money. All right, let's get into planning. All right, here's things you have to think about. If you do a podcast, is it going to be you only or you and a co-host? If it's, I can tell you, technically, it's way easier if it's you only. If you have a co-host, especially if they're not co-located with you, then you've got additional technical things to deal with. But it's perfectly fine, and it can, as long as that person takes the part of the load off of you and contributes, that can be a good thing. But I kind of like to be in charge of my own stuff and not depend on somebody else. So, it's much simpler technically to do your own. Okay, then you have to decide guests or not. So if you just do a podcast where it's just you recording, it's the absolute minimum of equipment and software. You're just recording a high quality audio, loading it up into your hosting service, and you're off to the races. When you have a guest is when it gets a little much more technical. And I like guests because it takes a load off of me and people like to hear their stories and all that stuff. But it is more technically challenging because they've got their microphone, they're going through the internet, their connection might not be as good as yours, and so you have stuff that goes on there. So you do have to decide guests or not. Some people start without guests, and then as soon as they get more money and get some more equipment and get somebody to hook it up for them, then they go to guests. All right, then you got to think about how often are you going to publish. Now, 3 times a week is challenging as heck. All right, but I have my kind of act together. I've been working out of my home ever since 44 years. So I'm kind of used to making my own time. So I knew I was going to put a heavy emphasis on this. So 3 times a week. But for most of you out there, unless you have a very competent staff and all you have to do is sit down and talk a little bit, and then they take care of all the other details, that's pretty aggressive 3 times a week. Once a week is probably about the bare minimum that I would do. But 3 times a week, you got to be pretty dedicated, have staff to help you to handle, because there's a lot more than just sitting down at the recording. You have the scripting, you've got guests, scheduling and editing and all this stuff. See, so it's much faster and easier to just start by yourself. All right, then you have to decide the topic, and you have to, just like websites, you got to say, okay, does anybody on earth care about this topic? So one thing you can do is go to Apple Podcasts and just search for your topic and see what comes up. And if there is none, just like in everything that I teach, if there's nobody else doing it, there's 2 things that could be happening. You either hit the lottery and going to get the whole market share, but more likely, it's the fact that nobody could make any money with that topic, and so they dropped it all. See? So you got to see what else is out there before you pick your final topic, and you of course have to pick a name for it. Mine tells you what it is instantly. I'm not for cutesy stuff that doesn't tell you what it is, because there's just so many podcasts out there. You don't want people to just slough over yours because they didn't know what it was about. So you can't really make a mistake on mine. Screw the commute. George, that's Apple Podcast was the big kahuna. Used to be iTunes. So you got to really consider your topic. And you can have a pretty, sharp topic and still be successful. Because if you're too general, you won't gain an audience that's, totally interested. You get somebody that says, well, I don't know what they're talking about this week. But if they know what you're talking about every single week, then it's easier to build an audience. All right, then you have to think, well, how long is this thing going to be? Now, it's not critical that they're exactly the same length like a radio show would be. But, and mine vary from 15 minutes to 50 minutes. And I think my memorial issue to my dad was 90 minutes. See, so it varies considerably. The closer you can keep it to being roughly the same, probably the better, because people know what to expect. And that's another big thing about scheduling. I was terrible in all the years I did my Great Speaking E-zine. I just put it out whenever I felt like it. But in this case, you want to have a schedule so people know what to expect. And Jay says, do you create metrics for success at this stage? What kind of metrics do you use? Jay, I don't, because my metrics for success are how many sales came in from the podcast. And you can't track that exactly because the podcast is considered an offline entity. And I mean, you could track it if I said, oh, you got to put a coupon code in for each episode, but that's too much work for me. I can just tell that when I promote stuff on a podcast, sales come in for that. So you want to keep it simple and don't go too crazy with metrics in the beginning, because it'll drive you crazy when you should be concentrating on building a great audience and doing a great show. That'll make your metrics way better in the long run than worrying about them before you have any traffic at all. Oh, well, we were talking about the length of the show. So some people do a 5-minute one. That's perfectly fine, and you'll build an audience that likes quick tips. I shoot for around 30 to 35 minutes with mine when I'm doing a guest, and most of my guests are pretty glib because a lot of them are professional speakers, but I want to make sure that it keeps the show moving really fast, and that I throw in jokes, and the 30 minutes goes by really fast. So if you're new at this and you're not sure you can carry 30 minutes, shoot for 15 minutes. It doesn't really matter. It just matters that you do a great show. And if you do a great show and build a great following, then you can start experimenting with longer shows or shorter shows or whatever. And research is part not only for the topic, but how many shows are in your particular arena. Keyword research to see who's looking for those kinds of information and all that. So you want to do all this ahead of time. All right, so that's some planning things. Now, basic equipment and software. One of your key things of everything is your microphone. This is the place that if you start with a crap microphone, if you start with earbuds from Apple that have that little stupid thing hanging down on the wire, you're not paying attention. That's not going to be quality. If you use a cheap noise canceling headset with that little tiny worthless microphone at the end of a boom, you're not paying attention. This is about quality, okay? So the microphone is the main thing. You can use any kind of computer you want. We're going to talk about computers, but it's all digital. But if you put a crap signal into it, it's going to be crap when it comes out and probably not fixable. So the microphone is the number one thing that you're going to buy. Now, that doesn't, I mean, you can get killer great microphones for $60, okay? You could pay $3,000 also, all right? But for $60 to $100 is all I'm asking you to spend for your microphone, and not a lavalier clip-on microphone because you say, oh, I want to use it for speaking too. No, this is a large diaphragm, which kind of cracks me up, that term, right? If you know what I'm talking about. Microphone that has deep resonance and just makes your voice sound really great. All right, now what you see on the screen are not microphones. What you see on the screen on the left is a 3-pin, more professional microphone that we use on what we call condenser microphones. What you see on the right is a USB connection. Probably everybody's familiar with that. So that would be a USB microphone. Now, there are microphones that can do both, the 3-prong or the USB. If you're just starting and you're on a budget, go with the USB. Just have a USB mic stuck straight into your computer and you're good to go. All right, but if you're going to make a more quality, studio, you're going to go with the 3-pin microphone. Okay, now some other things to go with it. A pop screen. A pop screen is this this thing right here. It's kind of like this inside part is kind of like women's hosiery material, or let me just say hosiery material, depending on depending on your nature. And what this does is help keep your breath from hitting the, see, this is the large diaphragm microphone. So if you say, and you could try this right now, you could hold your hand in front of your mouth and say Pepsi. When you say the word, the Pepsi, you can feel the air hit your hand. That is called a plosive. And that's like a sledgehammer hitting this large sensitive microphone, see? So this thing helps diffuse your breath so that you don't get those noises from those plosives, which sound really bad. Now, one other spare tip I'll throw in for you. I don't even talk straight through my pop screen. I talk at an angle across it, and that even gives me a better chance that my breath is not going to create a plosive that I'm not going to be able to edit out very easily. I mean, sometimes, most of the time, not at all. I just have to leave it. All right, so that's a pop screen. Now, a shock mount is this crazy spider-looking thing that's holding the microphone. Each one of these little lines is like a rubber band. And what it's designed to do is take minor vibrations or if you bump something so that it doesn't shake the mic so hard. Now, you can't smash into the desk and expect it to not get on the mic. But for minor stuff, a shock mount isolates your microphone so that it's kind of floating rather than hard, held to stuff. All right, that's a shock mount. Now, over to the right here, this is one of the microphones I've been suggesting for years and years. You could find them for $50 to $60 on the buying apps like OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace and maybe Craigslist if you don't want to get murdered or if you want to get murdered. But it's extremely versatile. It's a USB microphone. It'll plug right into your computer. It has its own little desk mount here. And it's this large diaphragm has 4 different pickup patterns. So you can make it just listen to you. It can listen to somebody on the other side of you at the same time if you're talking back and forth. You can sit it in your conference room and it'll be a surround sound microphone. So it's very versatile. It's called a Blue Yeti. There's a pro version that's not necessarily worth it. But if you can pick up one of these, it shouldn't cost you more than $100 new. It's always on sale somewhere. And about $60 used. Now, if they're used, you got to make sure somebody didn't drop it somewhere. But this is an absolute must. If you're not willing to do this, forget it. Just hang up because you're not serious. This is absolutely the #1 thing that's going to give you the quality thing. Okay, let me turn this off. This was just a generic picture, George, on the left. What you would do is go to your local music store that handles bands and stuff. They use guitars and all that, and tell them your budget. And a lot of times they'll let you even go into the sound room and listen to the different microphones. But if you tell them I got a budget of $100 and I'm doing podcasts, those guys hear this all the time. So and girls. So don't worry about the brand so much as that it sounds good with your voice. Okay, Jim says he owns that microphone. Yep. Okay. All right, now the Blue Yeti, yeah, Guitar Center is where I get stuff, a lot of stuff. The Blue Yeti sits on a desk, and so it's a little bit uncomfortable. Now, it is very versatile in that if you take off its little desk mount, it'll screw on the end of one of these mounts that you see here. This is a mic stand. The vertical part is a mic stand, and the horizontal part is a boom. And you see a mic stand like a stand-up comic. So you could put your microphone right at the top of here. But the problem with that is then it's sitting between your legs while you're trying to operate your computer and have your notes and your keyboard. So it's in the way. So if you put the boom on it, you can set the bottom part off to the side and have the boom with the microphone right here just in front of your mouth. So it makes it very comfortable and nothing is in your way from your desk in front of you. And the whole thing, you can get one of these, I don't know, $30 or something for the boom and the thing. All right. Now over here is called a scissors boom. I think I forgot to put the, hold on a second. Yeah, first one was mic stand with a boom, and this other one is a scissors boom. I like this because there's nothing on the floor for me to trip over, or when they vacuum, they're not hitting anything and messing with my stuff. So this particular one just clamps to your desk. And then this thing moves all over the place very easily, and the microphone is mounted here. This is just one type of mount, but there's adapters to mount different kinds of mics here. It's very convenient. You can just move it all around. You can lean back if you feel like it, lean forward, and just barely touching it, you can put it right where it needs to be. So, all right, so those are things you're going to need with your microphone, okay? Let's see here. All right, now another thing you're going to need. Now these are headsets and earbuds. All right, let me talk to you about this. This headset on the left, now forget about brands or anything. I don't care about that. All I care about is, in this particular case, is see how big this ear thing is here? Your ear goes inside this pad, and the pad goes next on your head. So if I didn't have this one, something like this, I spend hours with that headset on. One like this, even though it looks cool, see how small this is? That's pushing on your ear. And if you spend a lot of time doing this, that starts hurting like heck after a while. It's very uncomfortable. So in the studio, now if you want to look cool on the airplane, great, take it with you. But in the studio, you want something big like this that covers your entire ear. And it blocks out all the sound because, remember, we want quality here. So I'm going to be showing you ways that you can get rid of little sounds that you may not notice with these cheaper headsets. See? So anyway, don't get one like this for the studio. Get one like this. And absolutely, you do not get earbuds. Now, earbuds are fine if you are a guest on somebody's podcast and you want their voice to just go into your ears so you can hear what they're saying. You don't have to wear these big honking things where you're on a podcast. All you want to do is make sure you can hear them without. I'll take a sidebar here. See, if you just have your speakers on, your speakers go into your microphone and then comes back out, and that's called a feedback loop. You've heard them when live seminars, when the speaker squeals. Well, that can mess up your whole recording, and it makes the podcast host on the other end think you're an idiot. So it's okay for earbuds just to be able to hear the question. But when you want to really hear the quality of your podcast when you're working on it, you need something like this. All right. And again, doesn't have to be that expensive. Any studio headphones are good. I think I paid $25 for mine. Okay. This is an example of my podcast setup, just a still shot. And this is my boom, see? And this is my microphone. Now, for some reason in this shot, my pop screen is not on there. But I put even an extra thing. This is a foam thing over the end, plus my pop screen. Because I get really into it, and I'm not thinking, and I don't want to ruin my recording if I accidentally use a plosive and get it on the tape there. Okay. All right. I want to talk to you about this. When I first started the podcast, I had this big idea that I was going to buy a Windows 10 laptop. And at the time, I say, well, it's good because it'll force me to learn Windows 10 because everybody's going to that. And I'll just dedicate this laptop to my podcast. Oh, man. This was nightmare of all nightmares. Now, if you are just recording yourself into a Windows 10 machine, I'm perfectly fine with it. You won't have any trouble, no problem. But if you want to do guest interviews and have a high quality podcast, the quality of your voice will just be just as good if you have a good microphone and Windows 10 machine. But hooking up all this other crap you see on the desk there, the guy from the not the computer store, from the music store came and hooked it all up. And then it was working perfectly. He'd go home. I'd turn it off, come in the next day. It would all be messed up again. He'd come back, fix it again, come back, and then he'd leave, turn it on the next day, all crazy. It wasn't his fault. It was Windows 10. PCs have a lot of trouble with so many different connections to the audio of them. So I got so frustrated, I went down to the used Mac store. We have one called Shiny Computers. They'll sell you a used Mac, and if you trade it in for another Mac, they'll give you the exact amount of money you paid for the one you just bought. It was beautiful. So I bought this used iMac, and 320 episodes later, not one glitch. Okay. So if you're going to really take it to the next level, I suggest that you get a Mac to do it and have somebody from the music store hook it up for you. All right. So that's my Mac versus PC. And I actually went into the Mac store and I asked them, hey, if I was going to shoot a Windows laptop, should I use a pistol or a shotgun? Okay, so let me ask, is everybody out there? So you doing all right so far? Check in with me on the question box. If you have any questions, throw them right in there. We're doing good? Okay. Lots of okays. Doing well. So far, so good. Beautiful. Hanging in. Pistol. Shemaya said pistol. Or Michael said he'd use a pistol. Excellent. Fabulous value. Clive. Yeah, appreciate it. All right. Let's keep rolling here. All right. Now, another thing that's an absolute must is a backup recorder, digital recorder, because the last thing on earth you want to do is do a whole thing and then lose it, or it got corrupted or disappeared or whatever. You accidentally deleted it. Frank says use a 357 Magnum. I just showed this one. Zoom. Now, first of all, I don't want you to confuse the word Zoom, which is the company name for digital recorders, with Zoom, the conference software that's we're all using nowadays. It's just a coincidence. But this is a Zoom H1, which you can pick up for $50 to $60 used. They're about 100 new. And if you get the fancy ones, H4, H5, H6, those are much more expensive, but they'll do a lot more. But this is, I mean, it's still going to sound fine with an H1 for $50. But you absolutely, I mean, you could use a second computer, you could use, other things, but you'll especially think, people will think you're a goober if you get somebody that was hard to get as an interview, and then you mess it up and you want them to come back, they ain't coming back. All right. You just really made yourself look bad. So I actually have two backups. I record on the computer and have two digital backups going at the same time. So that's how important it is. But you can just start out with one little digital backup. All right. All right. Now we'll talk about software. So the first two I'm going to tell you about are free. If you already have a Mac, let's see, have you ever had to use a backup? Michael says, absolutely I have. Yes. I can't blame it on the Mac computer, but something happened that there was an error in one of the files. And so I had to go to the backup that was perfectly clean and use it. I didn't lose the whole thing, but when you have digital software, editing software, it'll be a line that says error, and then there'll be some voice missing. Well, it's just gone. So if I didn't have the backup, I just went to the backup, copied that little piece out, edited it right in, and like it never happened. So yes, absolutely I have. Okay, anyway, if you happen to have a Mac already, GarageBand comes on Macs. It's free and it's very powerful, and there's millions of tutorials on YouTube to show you how to use it. So yes, GarageBand is fine. For the PC, Audacity is free. Lots of people use Audacity. I used to use a paid thing called SoundForge only because I've been doing this for over 20 years. Mike Stewart, the internet audio guy, got me started in the late 90s. And he started me on, it wasn't called SoundForge at the time. I don't remember what it was called, but It's gone through many iterations, but recently I went to Adobe Audition, which I just pay $20 a month, and it's online. I can just download it, all the latest versions. I don't have to worry about updating or anything. So that's what I happen to use. But you have to have some type of editing software, or well, it's recording software. So you're recording into this. And then if you decide you're going to learn to edit, which is relatively easy, then you can edit with the same software. If not, then you would save the file and send it to somebody else to do the editing for you. But you got to have one of these. I mean, there might be others, but these are the big kahunas. And Audacity is very popular because it's free. And remember, it's all digital, so it's all going to sound just as good in any of them. It's just the editing functions and things that you can do to mess with the file, or afterwards, is different. All right, now let's talk about your recording area. You want to avoid, like, if you're going to do it out of your home or office, you want to avoid harsh floors and walls. And ceilings is kind of, you can't do too much about them unless you're really a fanatic. But what happens is you talk into your microphone, which is very sensitive, but your voice goes over and hits your wall, and then hits your floor, and hits the other wall, and hits the ceiling, and then comes back into your own microphone, an eighth of a second later. Okay, it's got kind of echoey stuff. You just definitely don't want that. So, is there anybody out there that has no carpets on the floors and just harsh, solid walls? Put it in your thing there of what type of room that you would have to do this. Clive says, okay, so I'm going to show you some fix-ups on what to do about it. There's all kinds of things that you can do to fix this. And another thing, hardwood floors, terrible, John, terrible. So we'll tell you how to fix that. Another thing you want to do for your recording area is listen carefully for background sounds that your brain has kind of become used to and just ignores. Well, your microphone's not going to ignore it, see? So is your air conditioner, heater running and making a noise? We've actually had a person, I said, what's that noise? It was like click, click, click. And they said, what do you mean? What noise? And I said, that noise, that click, click noise. You're crazy, Tom. I don't hear any noise. I said, stop and just stop and listen closely. He had a grandfather's clock right where next to where he was recording. It was going click, click, click. So if you live there, you just kind of ignore that, but the microphone will not. Another guy had a fish tank that was gurgling, and he's like, I said, what's that? You sound like you're underwater. He says, what are you talking about? His fish tank was right there gurgling, right? He just, you live there, so you don't think about it. So you got to cut that stuff out. And John says, too many dogs for carpet. No, I got a way to help you with that, John. Okay, so you got to listen for those background sounds. You got to pay attention to the time of day. Maybe you live near an airport and there's lots of traffic at morning, noon, and evening. I don't know, maybe there's slow times of day. Maybe you live near a highway that rush hour is just crazy, but the rest of the day is fairly calm until the next rush hour. Those kinds of things. Now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit for you, but you can do things with your recording software called noise reduction. So I can go in and if it's really hot and I don't want to have the air conditioner running, but I have a fan on. Well, that fan is a constant noise. I can go in and tell the software, you see this piece of noise here? Eliminate that piece of noise in the whole file, and then my file is like crystal clean. So that's called noise reduction. And then a noise gate, this is also either software or hardware, is where if you can set it so that it knocks out any noises below a certain level that were like accidental. Like if you shuffled your papers or something, or did something, you can set your noise gate to shut out everything except the stuff that you really wanted on the recording. That's called a noise gate. All right, so how do you fix up some of this stuff? Well, on the floor, if it's not carpeted, just get some, cheap crap throw rugs that you can roll up. Like I said, I wasn't thinking about the dogs, but you could get the dogs out of the room, throw the roll out the things, do your recordings, and roll them back up. All right, if you had to. All right. Yeah, the refrigerator might make noise. You could probably knock that out with a noise gate. Noise gate, Michael, is can all the software I just showed you have noise gates in them. You can set it. I happen to have a thing called a compressor limiter, which also has a noise gate. It's a piece of hardware. So either way you go is fine. A lot of people say hardware is better. A lot of people say software is better. I don't know. Yeah, definitely doable. Throw rugs. Yeah, you could go down to get the cheapest ones you can, as long as they're like, plushy kind of soft material. Throw them all around. They don't even have to cover the whole floor, just around, so that you just don't have one big flat hard surface. Then. Okay. Now for your walls, I'm going to show you some pictures of these things in a minute. Soft wall hangings, tapestries, things like that will break up for like hard, harsh walls. The ceiling is usually too much trouble for you to go hang stuff up there. Now you could, hang some pretty stuff like hangs over some bedrooms and stuff, from the ceiling. But as long as you're careful and you're not talking up all the time towards the ceiling, if you did a good job on the floors and walls, you don't have to worry about the ceiling. Now, another thing you can do is cool down the room and then turn off the AC, or vice versa. Turn up the heat and then turn off your furnace, as long as, until you're done recording. Make a recording sign for your door so that people know not to barge in, or the kids know when that sign's up there, don't bother mommy or daddy. Or if they have the sign up, you're not supposed to bother them. Again, use noise reduction and a noise gate. I'm just hammering that so that you know that it exists and you pay attention to that, because you want a quality recording. And if you got all this hiss on it and stuff, you won't get accepted into anything with Amazon or Google to have your recordings on there. So we want a nice, clean audio file. So here's some examples of wall hangings and tapestries. Not very expensive, Amazon. There's tapestries hanging on the wall. They look pretty, and it might make your place look better, really. That's a big throw rug, but you could have a bunch of little ones. All right, now here's a super duper tip here. And remember, if those of you stick into the end, I've got this, one of the best marketing tips in my entire career is going to be the last thing I tell you tonight. And, those of you who know me know I'm not hyping. It's absolutely one of the best marketing tips I've ever given out. All right, but here's how you could, this picture on the left is a microphone on a boom. The mic stands off to the left. Mic stands over here. This is a boom. And this is a closet in my hallway. So you can put if you have a lot of noise, and if your room is just so terrible it's too hard to fix, or if you need to do something in a hurry before you get all these things fixed up, you put your microphone in front of there, get a long mic cord, and talk into your closet. and all these coats and shirts and everything absorbs the sound and deadens it. See? Now this thing over on the right is a commercial thing where you can put your microphone in here and just talk into this foam stuff. And that it totally deadens everything. Now, the way I've taught people to do this is to get a box like a microwave box, about the size of a microwave, and then line it with this foam, and then cut like a U-shaped thing in the side like a doghouse, and stick your microphone inside, and then you talk into this U-shaped thing here, and right into the doghouse. Totally deadens the sound. Beautiful. See, dead sound, that's a good thing. It sounds like a bad term, but a dead sound is what you're shooting for. You're trying to avoid echoes. Say, okay. So these are two killer tricks to deaden the sound. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Now, I put this in here because, yes, I want you to, this is actually an example of a learning ad. I want you to subscribe to Screw the Commute. But I also want you to teach people how to subscribe to your podcast. So this link right here, screwthecommute.com/how-to-listen-to-podcasts with the dashes. I normally wouldn't put dashes in, but I just threw this in at the last second. Teaches you how to listen to my podcast. Okay? So you want to teach your people how to do it, and pretty much go to that page, subscribe to Screw the Commute, but then copy the page and put your stuff in on your site to teach your people how to listen to podcasts. Not everybody knows how to do it that easily. It's more and more every day, but certainly you want to teach them, help them. Then I want you to get my podcast app. It's on your cell phone or tablet. And I'm going to talk to you later about how you can have a really great app on the cheap. Say. Okay, so anyway, you go to screwthecommute.com/app. That's /app. These are plosives. I have to be careful when I say that on my podcast because I don't want the plosive noises to hit the microphone. So anyway, I want you to subscribe to that and then learn how to use it. And at this link, we have made a video to teach you how to use it and screen captures to teach you how to use it. Again, I want you to consume. I want you to use it so my podcast will get part of your everyday routine. But that's what I want you to do, say, for other people. Have an app, teach them how to use it, because a lot of apps, you get them and then they expect you to know how to use it, and then people don't use it. Say. Don't let that happen to you. All right, let's talk about podcast hosting. You see, this is all in red, all caps, and underline, do not. Okay. Do not try to host your podcast files on your shared hosting with your website. Audio files are relatively big. They're not nearly as big as video files, but if you started loading all these podcast files on your shared hosting for your website, you will get kicked off, or you will get this massive bill for overages on bandwidth. And you'll owe it. And that's the breaks. You either pay it or, they'll take your website down. So do not do this. What you're going to do is you're going to use a podcast hosting service. These are services that are hosts, just like a website host, but the only thing they host is podcasts. They're good at it. You don't get hit for overages. They know about that already. They're optimized to deliver your audio file so the people listening don't get any glitches. That's another thing. If you put it on your shared host and people tried to listen to it, it would never play correctly. And so they would unsubscribe right away. See? Where this podcast host is optimized for this. So that's what you do, podcast host. You can start as little as $5 a month. And I only pay $20 for 12 episodes a month, up to 400 megabytes of storage. Okay. So I only pay $20, but you can start at $5 a month. The one I use is Libsyn.com, Libsyn.com. Some of the biggest, they're the oldest, most reputable, biggest, baddest, some of the biggest podcasts in the world use this company. But it's still only $20 a month for me, and you'd start out at $5. So I think you pay more. Let's see, Apple Podcast doesn't host podcasts. No, Apple does not host your podcast. It takes I don't want to get in the weeds too much here, but it takes an RSS feed, it's called, from Libsyn or whatever your hosting service is. There's others. And it plays from Libsyn, but it's just displayed at Apple Podcasts. We teach that in our web stuff too. If you have a video, we put it over at Amazon S3 and have just a player on your website. People don't know the difference, but you're not putting a big video file on your hosting service. Well, in this case, the video file's on Libsyn. It sends a feed of that file to Apple, and they play it on Apple. Okay, Libsyn.com is the one I use. And they also are the ones that made my app super cheap. The app that I have, that I hopefully you all put on your cell phones and tablets, would have cost thousands of dollars to create from scratch. Libsyn, I pay $99 a year, and all I had to do, was less than $10 a month. And I have this beautiful app that does all this fancy stuff for podcasts. And all I had to do was provide the graphics so that mine doesn't look like yours. Yours might do the same thing, but yours would look different. So nobody else is going to have my yellow screw the commute thing, so I get this killer app with no development fees. I don't have to fight with any developers in India to do it right. It's done. See, so that's a beautiful thing. And your podcast hosting service, you upload your files there, and then it distributes it to it takes that RSS feed I was telling you about and distributes it to all the major podcast directories that you tell it to. So Spreaker and iHeartRadio, I think you have to be around for 2 months before iHeart will accept you, and SoundCloud and all these other places. Jeff says, why have an app? What's the advantage to your listeners and to you? Well, first of all, it sets you apart from all the other podcast guys and girls. And your podcast is fed directly to that, and they can do a bunch of fancy things with it. Like if somebody calls their phone, it'll, and maybe other things will do this too, but I mean, it's branded to me, so I'm totally in their face. But if somebody calls them, it'll pause the podcast, they take the call, and then when they hang up, the thing starts playing right where they left off. Okay? So it's it's a branding thing, and they can save their favorite episodes in it, and so there's a lot of good things about it. For especially cheap. Now, would I have done it for $2,000 to $3,000? No, but for $99 a year, yes. You're crazy not to. Somebody was asking about NoiseGate. Like I said, it's in the software or hardware. Okay, so that's podcast hosting. Let's talk about booking guests. All right, so it reduces the amount of content you've got to come up with. So that's an advantage of booking guests. Although, remember I said it's a little more technical to have guests and more hassle technically and sound-wise, because a lot of them don't listen to me when I tell them they must have a nice microphone. I've had to cancel and reschedule people that they just sounded terrible. And I'm not going to do that to them and make them sound bad, and I don't want it to do it to my podcast because people won't put up with bad audio. See, so you're going to run into that with guests that you'd like to have on, but they just suck, and they don't put it. They think, oh, I just talking to my computer, good enough. Well, who cares, But they don't get it, basically. Yeah, it's more complicated than just by yourself. But you have to do your best to impress the need for quality on the guests. And one of the things I provide in my course is my entire thing that I send to a guest before they're allowed on the show. And it lays out the audio stuff and what I'm going to talk about and this, that, and the other. And you can also get guests at online booking services. I'm going to show you more about getting guests. And a lot of them, the booking services, charge those people a lot of money. So they usually do a little coaching with them. So I'm saying you might get a better quality guest through them. But with my connection to the Speakers Association, I got plenty of people that, can't shut their mouth. I mean, they're good at stories and they're funny and all that. And I'm low tech. I use a paper calendar to do my booking. The only time a booking ever got messed up where I was supposed to be on somebody's show is when they all want to have these online calendar things and booking things. It's the only time I ever missed a show is because their stupid thing didn't have the right time zones on it. Which is something you got to really pay attention to. So I just use a paper calendar. All right. Now, from the listener's point of view and building an audience, it's interesting for your listeners to hear other perspectives and stories. So that's another good benefit. Now, if you want to know what a great guest looks like, I'm not picking one person. I want you to write down and listen to episode 211 of my podcast, How to Be a Great Podcast Guest. And being a great guest is part of your marketing. I'll get to it a little later. So you want to know what a great guest does, and then you'll recognize guests that you want for your show and see, the better they are, the more it promotes your show, in other words. Okay. So I send them by email what I expect from them audio-wise. I remind them to test their system in advance. I give them an idea of the questions I'm going to ask, how long I expect to go. This whole thing I send them, which, like I said, I give it to you as part of the course. All right. Now, one great, super way to find guests is just listen to other podcasts. Because if they're a guest on that podcast, they're used to being guests on podcasts, right? So, and you can hear if they're any good right off the bat. You can hear their sound quality, and you can hear if they're stupid, if they're great, or some guests are too good where they never shut up, and it makes the show run long, and the host doesn't get anything, and you don't want to be that kind of guest, all right? But you can find out if they're a good guest or not. So. And also National Speakers Association. You don't have to be a member to go to their site. And there's, 2,000 professional speakers there that are all publicity hounds that can all speak and have stories and are funny. And and on different topics. So if it makes sense for your topic, there's hundreds and hundreds you could probably get out of there. And I told you about podcast booking agencies. You just type that in and a bunch of them will come up. All right, let's talk about marketing now. Be a guest on other podcasts is one of the best ways to market a podcast because the listeners of that podcast know how to listen to podcasts. Right? They like podcasts. I think I've gotten close to 200 subscribers to my podcast from one I've been on Entrepreneur on Fire twice, but I remember counting the second time I was on, I got like 200 subscribers to my podcast from one appearance, say. So you're getting introduced to a whole other body of people that love podcasts. So that's one of the main marketing things. And one of the reasons when I launched my podcast, I actually had 50 episodes done. I was planning on 20, but I was on such a roll. I had 50 episodes in the can, so that I had 4 months that I didn't have to record anything, that I could concentrate on being guest on other people's podcasts. And that's how I built my whole initial following, besides my own email list, of course. But all these other people came that never heard of me before by me being on other podcasts. So be a guest is one of the best ways. Now, more recently, I've been getting a little picky, and when these podcast agencies come after me to try to get one of their guests, I have a boilerplate that I send back to them that says, currently only accepting reciprocal appearances. So if you have a guest that has a podcast and it makes sense for both of us, I'll have your guest on, and that guest will have me on their podcast. I do that all the time now. And so it's kind of an automatic way to use that booking service and not pay them. All right. So I'm paying them with letting one of their clients be on my podcast. That's a really important one there, folks. Underline that one. Be a guest and trade appearances. Cost you absolutely nothing to do this, to be in front of lots of people that never heard of you. See? If you think that's a good idea, put a 1 in your question box there. Just put the number 1. That way you won't have to type too much. Greg says 1. Oh, there's a million ones coming in there. And I got 1 brilliant in there. That's cool. 1 plus, says Al. All right. So, yeah, they're just blowing by there. Yeah, so I highly suggest you get that in your mind, that being a guest and trading appearances can really blow up your podcast quickly. All right. Of course, you're going to promote. I mean, some of this stuff is no-brainer. Promote on all your social media. Now, whenever possible, unless they're a really big-name person, you try, and I put this in my note that I send to people. I try to get a commitment from them to when their episode goes live, for guests, that is, that they commit to promoting it on their social media. Now, do they all do it? Hey, Donna says 1 with 5 pluses. Awesome. Donna says, I'm the real deal. Thank you very much. Hope you're feeling better. I can't see the whole name, but I think I know who it is. So yeah, if you have a choice between 2 guests and one has a big social media following and tells you they're happy to promote it, guess what? That person wins, because it's helping promote the show. Now, you can put your audio on YouTube. Well, how do you do that? Well, YouTube is a video platform, right? So there's software out there that'll take the audio file and combine it with a video. Some of them will even transcribe your audio and put the words on the video as it goes by. All right. So then you can put your podcast on YouTube as an additional marketing thing. You can drive a PPC as pay per click, so you can drive traffic. You can do searches for people that like your type of podcast. Use the proper keywords, and then use pay per click to tell them about your podcast. And then one thing that was hard for me, but I've been doing it, I've been sticking with it for these couple years, is a regular schedule. So I've been 3 times a week. I think I missed 1 week about a month ago because I was just swamped with moving my school. So I thought, instead of half-assing it, I'm just going to skip this week, take a hiatus for 1 week, and so back on schedule. So on my schedule has been for years. Monday is an in-depth training session, and Wednesdays and Fridays are either another training session or an interview. Most of the time it's been an interview, but lately I've had so many things to talk about. I've just been doing training sessions Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But you got to keep a regular schedule to build a listenership so they know what to expect. Put it on your business cards. Put it in the signature file of your email. This is all standard stuff here, folks. Okay, now let's talk about making money with it. Well, here's this is another real keeper, folks. Forget about sponsors that are going to pay you a couple dollars per 1,000 downloads. First of all, until you get thousands of downloads, you're never going to, a sponsor won't even want you. So you'll make nothing. So right off the bat, I started that I am my own sponsor. Every single episode is me or a product of mine. If you don't have any products, you got consulting, coaching, but you should be getting products. I mean, I got tons of, I got 18 different ebooks. I got, online courses. I got the speaker system. I got my mentor program. I got my school. We got one person for the school. It was a military, so it was 9,500 instead of 19,000. But there's 9,500 from one person. See, so how many downloads and how many butts did I have to kiss to get a sponsor to make that kind of money? See, so make yourself the sponsor of your own episodes. Now, if you don't want to take that advice, you've got to build up your download amounts to attract podcast ad agencies. And you can type that into Google, and there's places that they play middleman or middle person between podcast publishers like you and advertisers that want to advertise on podcasts. So they list your podcast and how many downloads and how much you charge per 1,000. And then advertisers can say, oh, I like Screw the Commute. I like this other one. I want this other one. And I'll pay so much per 1,000. So you can do that. It's just that it'll take a while before you get enough downloads per episode that anybody wants you. See? Where my method, the first episode made money. Okay, so think about it. If you got $12 for 1,000 downloads, if 1,000 people listen to you, don't you think you could sell them 1 or 2 ebooks and make 40 or 50 bucks? See? What if you sold them 10? You made $200-300 for that episode instead of $12. See? So make yourself the sponsor is my advice. Now, and you get speaking engagements out of this. Now, not nowadays, pretty much with the pandemic, but some of my students are getting paid, Zoom classes. The company wanted them, but they can't come in person, and so they're paying them to do Zoom. So all of this can come from this. Consulting, same thing. Coaching. Now, you can have guests pay you to be on your show. Some shows charge a lot of money to do this. I don't particularly pay to be on a show because I got enough credentials and cool story that, usually they want me. But you can make money charging to be on your show. There's plenty of people do it. All right, so what did we cover today? Remember, I got some the biggest, baddest marketing tip. Yeah, it's coming. I'm telling you, it's going to blow your mind. All right. All right, so we covered planning, basic equipment and software. We covered the recording area, hosting, booking guests, marketing, and making money. And another poll is coming. And then then I'm going to have the 3 super tips at the end. So let's take another poll here. All right, let me find the poll here thing. Okay, now do you know the basics of creating a quality podcast? Hopefully you can see it. Okay, there we go. Jeff says, content for a podcast. Do you provide your best content or save it for your paid programs? I never hold back anything, Jeff. what I always tell people is anything I ever said in my entire life is for free on the internet. You pay me to put it in one place for you. In fact, I'm going to end up selling like, I don't know, 50 podcasts or 100 podcasts that are all training sessions, even though you could go find them one at a time if you sifted through my site. So, I never hold back on anything. It's just time is the enemy. I only have so much time. I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for a week straight and never repeat myself, but nobody would put up with that. They'd rather buy the stuff. All right, so give me 10 more seconds here. Let's see. Donna says, nicely done. Well paced. I like the idea that we pay you to put everything together for us. Yeah. Time is the enemy for sure. All right. So check this out. So let's close the poll. And 100% of the people said that they did it. So that looks like I increased by 70 some percent, 75%, 76%. So I think I did my duty, and we had a little deal. I think I delivered on my promise, and let me know if you think I delivered on my promise, and then you agreed that you would listen about my product. So put it in there. Put a number 2 in there if you think I did my duty. You better believe it. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. 10 times 2. You rock. 2. You always deliver. Very funny. 2. Oh yes. 2 for sure. 1, 1, 1. I don't know. So, 2, 1. Oh, one of my best. Oh, great. All right. So let me tell you about the course I have for you. If you already bought the pre-publication, there's some enhancements here that may push you over the edge that make you want to increase the deal. And also, I always teach during, I never let it down that I always teach during the pitch. So you're going to learn something just by sitting here. And then I got those 3 super bonuses at the end, and the one is definitely going to blow your mind. Okay. So here's the deal. Told you that. Okay. So this is the course, Podcasting 901E course. And I'm going to tell you what comes in it. Well, before I'll tell you why you need this, because it's going to save you time. It took me 4 months of constant study just to learn how to start my podcast. So that's out for you. Let's see my question box here. Make sure. It's going to save you money because with your consultations, I'm not going to let you buy things that are worthless. I always do that with my mentor program and everything is people are not allowed to buy anything unless they ask me first. And I have saved, has to be hundreds of thousands of dollars for people, probably $1 million over the last 20 years by talking people out of stuff that was worthless. And everything I talked about today has a whole bunch of details to it that if you mess it up, it's going to mess you up. So what's holding you back from learning this? Well, you might think it's too expensive. That's out the window today. Everything I have is reasonably priced. You could get started for only 99 bucks today. Plus, you're going to get a ton of bonuses. So I've got a one price deal and a finance deal. So you can pay it over like 4 months and it's still cheap. People say, oh, I don't have enough time to do this. Well, you have to market one way or the other. And the beauty of this kind of marketing is these things last a long time. Like I said, I still have people from 2 years ago, over 2 years ago, watching my #1 episode and watching all of them in order. All right, so if you don't have time to create stuff that works for you, do you have time to just keep working and trying to get paid? Work, get paid, work, get paid. No, work, get paid, paid forever is what I say. Lack of recording skill. Listen, none of this is that tough. It's just that no credible person ever taught you to do it. All right, and that's what I'm going to do. So what do you need to understand about podcasting? It's an extremely powerful marketing medium. It's not that hard to learn. And the time you take to learn it will pay off for the entirety of your business career. These things last a long time. And a consistent show can literally make you millions of extra dollars over what you would have made over time. And it's the only medium. This is the real killer important thing about audio. It's the only medium where you can learn or be entertained while you're doing something else. So people will consume it. The problem is you only need to know about 20 times what I covered tonight to have the kind of success I'm talking about. But I guarantee you the money is out there if you get this knowledge. The listenership is going crazy. And the average listener is a higher economically savvy person. They've got more money. I think the average, I think I read, don't hold me to this, that the average listener is in the workforce is 70,000 a year or more. So they have spendable income. So get to the darn deal. I'm missing my favorite Seinfeld review. All right, so here's the deal. It's a $347 product, but if you pay it all at once, you save $50 and it's $297. Or you can pay $99 down and 3 easy payments of $82.67. This is the link you go to, screwthecommute.com/podcast deal. And also the first 10 of the pay the cash deal, the $297, get an extra consultation. So you get 2 consultations. And remember, I got 3 super bonuses. All right. That's the same deal I just said, extra slide. But there's a whole bunch of bonuses. These aren't the super bonuses. These are the bonuses that come with the deal. The other ones are going to be tips that are really going to blow your mind. All right. So you get a video tour of my whole studio, including me sitting there saying, well, this is what this little machine does. This is what this does. This is the shock mount. This is how I mount the thing. This is the carpet in the wall and why it's not echoing and all that stuff. So that's a video tour of that. I think it's about 15, 20 minutes worth. Then bonus 2, you get a 30-minute consult about your podcast or any other topic I'm qualified to talk about. I'll give you a list in a minute. And the first 10 of you that buy through that link get 2 consults, and they're good forever. As long as I'm breathing, I never make you do it within a few days or something. I'm a consultation fanatic. Then on bonus 3, you get a shout out on Screw the Commute podcast that's going to put you in front of thousands of people. So that is, hey, let me give a shout out to Al Borowski and his communication class, and it's communicationwithal.com or something like that. See? That'll be on a separate episode by itself. And then bonus 4 is totally crazy, is you get a complete one-on-one featured interview on Screw the Commute podcast. So it's just me and you. Just like I interview other guests, you get one that you can use for marketing. It'll go out to all my people, thousands of people. It'll go out to all my social media. It'll go through my press release service in DC, everything. So you'll get a full one-on-one interview. Now, if you suck at interviews, I'm going to help you and teach you a little bit. You got, George, this is the one where it doesn't have the full interview and I don't think it has this, I think it has the shout out, but not the full interview on it. And the critiques and all that stuff. So this is pretty darn valuable. I said double priceless. Okay, let me, so you also get a full, whenever your podcast comes out, I will do a full critique of it when it goes live. And like I said, all my stuff is good as I'm still breathing, you know. I'll rate and review your podcast on Apple Podcasts for you also. That's another bonus. And then I will either be a guest on your podcast if it makes sense for you, and then I'll blow it up on my social media for you. Or if it doesn't make sense, if you have something, you know, on the occult or something, I have no idea what that's about, and I wouldn't be a good guest for you. But I'll try to help you find a guest because I know a lot of people in all kinds of topics and stuff. So 7 bonuses with this thing. I mean, I hope you see this as a crazy no-brainer. So I know it can feel overwhelming, but don't worry, you are not alone. This is why I always give consultations when people invest in stuff with me so that I can answer questions one-on-one. George says he's in for the upgrade. So you'll get credit for what you paid on the first one if you bought the first one. So I'll have a special deal for the people that have already bought the pre-publication sale. You just email me and I'll send you a link for the upgrade. Okay. So anyway, the first 10 get 2 consultations, and like I said, they're good forever. All right, what can we talk about on your consultations? Podcasting, obviously. Copywriting, which I'm expert in and one of the best, most important skills in my entire business career. Professional level speaking, anything internet related except local search. Don't come to me if that's a completely specialized field of local search. I usually talk local businesses into expanding globally with their digital products. And but if you're only interested in local search, I'm not the guy. Entrepreneurship, never had a job, 44 years in formal business. I know a little bit about that. And anything business related that I'm qualified to talk to you about. I won't give you advice on, accounting and things that you need a professional for. I might give you my opinion for sure, but I can't give you advice on things that I'm not qualified to. All right, and just about my consultations, I really love this thing. Tom, I got more and better ideas on our call than I got from my master's degree in business, and at a much less expensive price. Michael Gonzalez. Awesome. So here's a recap of what you get. A 53-page ebook. So this is very concise. This isn't like my 1,040-page click ebook from the old days. All right, this is concise on all these topics. It's called What I Learned After Doing 309 Quality Podcasts. And here's the topics it covers. Equipment, software, and services, including plugins. Like, for instance, see this thing right here? So remember I said I'm going to teach you while we're at it. This is Dr. Winifred Bragg. She's a student of mine. But this is a podcast player. This is a plugin for WordPress. And it'll do all kinds of things. I can't show you all of them because this is just a picture. But this is obviously the play button. But it has, they can play it at faster speed. When you push this, it gives you choices of how fast to play it. You can download it. You can change the volume. You can do everything right here. And this is just a plug-in, and it's all formatted beautifully. You just plug in the words and their picture, and boom. And then the description of her description here. And then beneath this would be your show notes. Okay, so the book covers that kind of stuff, what plugins we use, and all that stuff. All right, more in the book. Importance of recording on separate tracks. If you have a guest, this is an absolute must, or you're going to be pulling your hair out. What you need to do to push to higher quality. So I show you the different levels of quality. If you really want to play at the high levels, the different equipment you can get. Still doesn't have to cost a lot. More details on pre-planning your thing. Organizing yourself, because I'm not very organized, so I had to force myself to keep track of these guests and the episodes and what ads went with each one. So all my organization techniques. Graphics. Now this is something where, see, this is our basic Apple Podcast demanded podcast graphic. I had for 10 years working for me a professional level Photoshop guy. Still took him 3 times to get it accepted by Apple. They're so exacting on the standards. So we go over that and show you where to find the standards and what to do so you can get it approved. Intros and outros. Like if you've heard mine, I have music playing, and then I have a voiceover that I got at Fiverr, and then an outro music. Well, I got the outro music, but it talks all about this in the book. Marketing in the pre-planning stage. You want to start your marketing before the thing ever comes out. Website elements. These are all the elements that you need to have on a, we have a dedicated website for the podcast. You don't necessarily have to do that, but if you're serious about this and want to make money, I would. Hey, John's in. Good job. Okay. All about the show notes, how you use show notes and repurpose and that kind of stuff. Creating a launch team. See, I recorded all these episodes, then I recruited a launch team and how I managed them and got them to help me. I told you I pre-recorded lots of episodes. Again, I talked to you earlier about teaching people how to subscribe and download, so you have a link to that already. Podcast scripting. This is a really important thing. I guarantee you can't tell that on almost all of my Monday sessions, I'm reading from a script, but it doesn't sound like it. So that whole technique, and what it does is it saves tons of editing. So that whole technique I use to create the script and then make it work so that it doesn't sound like I'm reading is in the book. Simple audio editing tips and how to market in each episode is all in this book. Very concise, but these tips are just amazing. What I learned after studying this for a couple of years and doing it all the time. So do you think there's a little bit of value here so far, folks? Put it in the put a 3 in there if you think that there's plenty of value here so far. C3. Immense. All right, that's 3 and 6-letter words. 333. Don't put 666 in there though. C3PO. Oh man. All right, well, I'm still got going stuff here. So what do you do when, how do you make it go live so everybody can listen to it? How do you submit to all these podcast directories? You have to sign up with them. That Libsyn I was telling you about can't distribute it unless you sign up with all these directories. What's new and noteworthy? That's an important thing you want to shoot for when you get started, which can get you loads of subscribers overnight. What do you do on the launch day? What about subscriber counts? How do you keep track of that stuff? What do you do the day after? And the day after that? How do you get your podcast on YouTube? All of these are covered in the book. How to handle guests. You get my complete guest instructions. You got to deal with time zones and scheduling, multiple backups I covered, and how to get your own app and all the stuff involved in that. So that's just in the ebook. Then you get the video tour of my studio. You get the 30-minute consult or 2 if you were the first 10. You get the shout out on Screw the Commute, and you get a complete one-on-one special edition. Then you get a full critique of your podcast when yours goes live. I'll rate it on and review it on Apple Podcasts for you, and I'll be a guest or help you find a guest, whatever suits you. All right, so it's $347, but if you pay all at once, it's $297. You go to this link, there'll be just 2 choices there. Either one pay of $297, or you can put $99 down and 3 easy payments of $82.67. And the first 2 get an extra, or the first 10 of the cash deal get a extra consultation anytime. Now, I hardly ever have to say this anymore. A lot of people know me, but you get a 60-day money-back guarantee, no risk. You can try it all out. We answer the phone here. You don't get in voicemail hell. We're accessible. The staff or myself answer from 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, but a lot of you have called me, Christmas Eve when I answered the phone. So we're always accessible. I've been around 44 years. I'm not going to leave over this deal. Now, is there a catch? Yes, there's always a catch. All right. Here's the deal. You get 60 days to work with the course, check it all out. Everything I claimed is in it. Try it, and if it doesn't live up to your expectation, you can get a full refund. Now, do you think that's fair? If you think that's fair, 60 days to try this all out and see if I'm full of it. Is that fair or not? Put it in your box there. See, one thing I'm all about is fair, because nobody's chasing me, nobody's suing me, nobody's charging back their credit cards for me, because I'm fair with people. Quite fair. You're all about that. Mike says, yeah, fair. Yes, Tom, you're always fair. About as fair as you can get. All right. All right, so here's the condition. You get all that, but as soon as you start taking advantage of my consultations, which is my personal time, you agree that the course is no longer refundable, and if you finance it with me, you're going to make all your payments. Tell me if that's fair, because you got all this time to check it out, but if you screw me out of, an hour's worth of consultations and then ask for a refund, that says more about you than me. Fair deal. Good deal and fair. All right. Okay. So for those of you that had enough, go over to screwthecommute.com/podcast-deal. Sign up. Now, if there's any questions, go ahead and hit them now, and then I'll get into the 3 super tips that I promised you. Any questions on anything? I'll take a little drink here while I'm waiting for that. Yeah, George, if you've already purchased the original, you just email me my normal email, orders@antion.com. As soon as we're done here, I'll send you the link for the upgrade. And then you'll get all the other stuff involved. Any questions? Oh, how do we know if we're one of the first? So as soon as we get done with this, John, I will be emailing people to tell them. But they're coming in pretty good, I think. I don't really know, because I'm like I said, I'm by myself today, so I don't know how many ordered so far. But get in there and get your order in. But then, any questions? I don't have to take 30 minutes to get to the other ones if there's not many questions. All right, well, I'll go ahead and get into the super tips. All right, do you show how to boost rank on Apple? Yeah, we can talk about, because that's different all the time, Clive, depending. So that would be something we talk about on the consultations. But yeah, you got to, obviously you want reviews and ranks and downloads and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we can talk about that on your consultation. All right, so I'll just keep an eye on the question box, but I'll go in and get to the super tips. But you know what? Probably some of you saw this coming. I always give more than I promise, so I'm giving you 6 super tips. And the last one is the one that's going to blow your freaking mind, I'm telling you. If the people that left now really blew it, I'm telling you, because it's a way to get in front of thousands and thousands of people with a warm introduction for free. So that's what the last one's going to be about. All right. So first super tip is called compression. And I normally illustrate this with a balloon, but I didn't have a balloon at the house. So I happened to have a cheese hat from Wisconsin, from Green Bay, Wisconsin. So I'm using this to illustrate compression. All right. So the reason you want to compress your final podcast before you send it out, and this can be done in either software or hardware. All the software I showed you earlier can do this, or you can get a compressor limiter, a piece of hardware that does it. So the reason you want to compress stuff is because you have to think how most people consume. Remember, I say consume your podcast. They're usually going to be wearing earbuds, which aren't big studio headphones. And so the dynamic range of those earbuds just can't be as good. No matter how much you paid for them, they're so tiny, they can't possibly be as good as big headphones. Right? So, and then they're probably in a noisy environment, in a Starbucks, on a plane, in a train or bus, or subway, whatever, all right? Walking down the street with street noise. So if you just send your normal podcast out, if you look at my hands here, my right hand is on the bottom, my left hand is on the top, see? So if you think of these areas, like over here, the top here is the high frequencies, and down here is the low frequencies. Like I said, it's usually is a balloon here. Well, if you just send it out like this, those little earbuds in a high noise environment, it's very difficult to hear these low frequencies and these high frequencies. So it's a much more difficult experience for the person to listen. And I said earlier, people won't put up with poor audio. And if it's hard to listen to, they'll just unsubscribe and find, and also they're comparing your podcast to somebody that's really great's podcast. See? So if yours sucks and too hard to listen to, they'll just unsubscribe. So what compression does is it squeezes the low ends up, and by the way, if you're an audio expert, you would be puking at my explanation, all right? But this is good enough for government work. And it pushes down the high frequencies so that this range in the middle is much easier to listen to. So your podcast will be heard better when people are listening in all these nasty environments. That's compression. And that's one thing, if you want to have a really high quality, when you're done recording and editing, you'll say, okay, compress this thing. Now, like I said, I have a piece of hardware that does it as I'm talking. But if you are on a tight budget, you can do it afterwards and edit it. So that's compression. We want to thank Joan Stewart, the publicity hound, for providing the cheese hat. Okay. All right. Next, super tip is called SpeakPipe. So this is what you see here is like a little cutout of the home page of Screw the Commute, including down here at the edge, this little blue thing that says send voicemail. I've expanded it here for you, so that's what it says. Well, this is a godsend. I have been using this for years for a couple reasons. One is people can click on it, leave me a voicemail by just talking into their cell phone or computer or laptop, and it comes to me via email, and then I can either listen on the email or go to the SpeakPipe site and listen. And then I can just click a button and respond to them, all right through the internet. See, so that's a very handy thing. However, we also use it. We invite people that like the podcast to come over here and record something for me of what they liked about the podcast, and they get their own little shout out by putting their own website and name in. And then I play it during an episode. See, so it makes it really easy for me to just say this on the podcast. People go to the website and do it, and I get an email that says, hey, here's a message. And it's somebody saying, oh, man, I really liked Screw the Commute. The episode on so-and-so really helped me in my Flowers R Us website or whatever. So really a very low cost, easy. You can put it on any of your websites for any purpose, but it's perfect for um, podcast. And also, I'm going to show you. I think I have another tip here. Well, I'll just tell it to you now. So, also, I know I was doing one on business insurance, and I wanted to get in front of other people. Oh no, wait, that's the last tip. So I'll wait. Okay, I see. Let's see. Yeah, so Greg, just if you you emailed me, so I will take care of that as soon as I get off here. Okay, so anyway, SpeakPipe, we use it in other ways that I'll tell you about later. So anyway, that is a super tip. All right, let me close this and go to the next super tip. All right, next super tip is I talked to you about show notes. This is the transcription of the whole podcast. And I have a super cheap place to do that. If you email me, I'll send you my affiliate link to it, and you'll get 30 free minutes of transcription. And it's once you join for like $100 a year, but then you get your transcriptions for $5 per recorded hour. Oh my God, I've saved a fortune using this service, and it's back in 10 minutes. But anyway, the super tip is you can tell people, hey, you can check the show notes, or if you want the entire transcript. These aren't the show notes, excuse me. This is the transcript of the entire podcast. Well, if you want to build your email list, you make them opt in to get the whole transcript. So this can build your email list really fast. If you did a good job on the podcast and somebody wants the transcript, they have to opt in to get it, and now you got them on an email list. Okay? And they might have come from Apple, from who knows where they came from, but they weren't on your email list. That's where you really want them. So there's a super tip for you. To get the transcript, you have to opt in. All right. Another super tip. So you can highlight groups like for a week or a month, and I put Veterans Month there. So I did a month called Screw the Commute Veterans Month, and I only interviewed veterans. And so, of course, they showed all their other veterans that they got on there. And so I got all these veterans, a market that I'm interested in because military spouses, I want to get into the military market. So I got all these veterans spreading the word around to get my name around in the veterans market, see, because we have scholarships available through the Department of Defense for military spouses. So the idea for you is to have Nurses Month, or whatever you do, or Nurse Week, and just interview that person, and they're going to spread the word in that community. So that's another super tip for you. Okay, here's a super tip. You can use shout outs like I just did for this program, all right, as bonuses for other product sales. So you can say, hey, when you buy my ebook, you get a shout out on your on my podcast or your podcast, say. So that makes a totally free bonus that means something to them, because then they get in front of a bunch of people, say. So for their business or their website or whatever, or charity, it doesn't have to be a business. Say. So use shout outs as bonuses. That's your tip. Okay, here's the last tip that's going to blow your freaking mind if you're still awake. All right, let me tell you what I used to do. Before my podcast came around, I used to tell people that if you want to infiltrate, that's kind of a mean sounding word, but get known, let's say, in a Facebook group for marketing purposes, all right? You can't just go and just start marketing yourself. You'll get kicked out in 2 seconds from almost any Facebook group there is that's valuable, a group of people that you want to get in with. So I told him, okay, you got to join the group. You got to make good comments over time and get to know people and check out their um, profiles and say, be helpful, give good tips, and you can't be too pushy. And then maybe you'll get some business out of it when people look at your profile and see what you do. All right, this is a long, drawn out thing. Okay. Oh man, I started using this tip when I got my podcast. I just went right. I'm hoping that you realize the power of what I'm going to tell you right now, right? Because it is really important. Well, first of all, tell me if you like the super tips so far. Put a 5 in there if you like the super tips so far. 5K. Jeff is a 5. 5. That's where I am right now. I can't wait. 5 and loving it. 5, 5, 55. I can't drive 55. Go ahead, make my day. All right. Okay, so here's the thing. So you're with me so far. We're trying to get in a Facebook group. And the old way took forever, and you're lucky if you got anywhere. The new way is you contact the admin or admins of the group, and you ask them to be a guest on your podcast. Think about this, folks. The leader of the group that holds the strings to all the 1,000, 5,000, 15,000, 30,000 members, you are asking, you're bypassing all the stuff I just told you and asking them to be a guest on your podcast. Then you have them as a guest on your podcast. Well, what do you think they're going to do with the link to their podcast recording? What do you think, folks? Mike says, wow, awesome, falling out of my chair. Tell me what you think they're going to do when they get the link to the recording on your podcast. I'm not saying it out loud. People are starting to put it in there already. That's right. They're going to post it in the group. So you just went to the top of the heap to be put in front of, typically people love the admins of their group and going to go listen to it and be exposed to you. And of course, your ads are in there. It'll work with any kind of group. Yeah, Jeff, I've just, Facebook is the obvious one. So let me tell you what this has done for me. So, yeah, can't wait to try it. So I did this on a group called Veterapreneurs, and I love these people. I love veterans. I would have done it the old way because I want to help veterans. They risk their ass so we can do the stuff we do. Some of you may be veterans, and if you are, thank you so much. So anyway, I wanted to get in there because I want to be able to help the military families with my school. It's just perfect for them because they can move anywhere. You know, usually they have to take crappy jobs, and then because everybody knows they're going to move. But if they were working on the internet, they can take their clients with them anywhere they go. See? So I was desperate to get into this group. So I interviewed the admin. We hit it off like crazy because he's a badass MFer from a Bronze Star winner, a really great guy, but just like me, guns and tough and gunfights and all this stuff that we had. Although I wasn't in the service, we had a lot in common. Hit it off great with him. So he invited me to do some training for his Veterapreneur group, 14,000 members. Even gave me admin access to it. so that it wouldn't have to bother him to book all the events. So I did a 5-part marketing series for entrepreneurs. They loved it so much, they invited me to speak at the Military Influencers Conference. This happened within like 3 weeks, folks, up in Washington, D.C., where I met another military spouse who was also an ex-Marine, so she's both. We hit it off. She's a military spouse of the year at Fort Bragg, in with the second lady, gets me invited to the White House. Right? This all happens in a couple months. I go up to the White House. I'm meeting in the office of the second lady, whose platform is military spouse employment. And we also, before the pandemic hit, got her to agree to show up at an event this military spouse and I are going to put on. I mean, so this all happened from this idea, folks. That's why I'm telling you it should blow your mind if you're a thinking person, because that can happen. And there's so many groups out there, and the admins, are happy to be interviewed, and some of them have multiple admins, so you can interview several of them. See, so that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. So hopefully I did my job for you. If you want to get in on the deal, screwthecommute.com/podcast deal. I can't wait to talk to you. I can't wait to critique and see your podcast and help you come up with a really great marketing thing, which is kind of my mission in life, to help people like you to thrive. So those of you that already bought the pre-publication sale, I'll send you a link for the upgrade. It's just $197 added to the $97 you already paid, and I'll have a special link for that. And the rest of you, I'll alert you if you're in the top 10, and then you can start the course. I suggest, if you're going to talk about podcasts, that you go through the course first so that your questions can be better, so we don't waste time on stuff that you could easily learn out of the ebook and the videos and stuff. And then I'll get you prepared for your shout out. I'll get you prepared for your one-on-one, and put you in front of lots of people. All right, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks, everybody. If you have any questions you think of afterwards, orders@antion.com. And here's my cell phone. It's 301-346-7403. 301-346-7403. I suggest you text me first, because I get so darn many robocalls, I hardly pick up anymore. But I'll be glad to get back to you just as soon as humanly possible. All right. Good luck. We'll see you all on Screw the Commute. Catch you later.